If you need a bit of Bionicle inspiration at the moment, we're here to help. We're the Bionicle Inspiration series. We're here to inspire you to make some cool Bionicle mocks of your own as we take a look at what the Bionicle community has to offer, and we focus in on a specific Bionicle topic, and this week's topic is weapons. What sort of Bionicle weapons can you give to your mocks? We've got some unique examples today, some different ones, not your sort of average weapon. We also have some of your average weapons too, to be fair. But we got some good unique stuff today as well. So let's think outside the box. Let's think inside the box, because sometimes that's just as good as thinking outside the box. But regardless, let's get our box, pour out our pieces, and start thinking about how we're going to build some Bionicle weapons. Let's go. So, first Bionicle mock we've got today. This is called the Ogram King, and it's by Kumagoloff. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Kumagoloff, that's probably it. But this mock, as Mr. Bunkle's Mocks on Instagram said, looks awesome, man. And I agree with him. This mock does look awesome. He has done a fantastic job here, specifically on the weapon. The reason I love this is, first off, he's kind of just holding a big flower rose thing. And there's something kind of beautiful and absurd about that. I just kind of like the idea that maybe this guy's super tiny, and he's just gone to the garden, picked up a flower that is the size of him because he's tiny. And he's like, this will be my weapon. I have decided. Or he's just got a giant flower and used that as his cool, like, club mace weapon. Maybe on the weird planet he lives on. Flowers are not brittle and soft. They are hard like an axe. And he is using it as such. I think that's just kind of obscure, kind of weird, kind of different. And actually works really well as a weapon. But wait, there's more. So you might think, that's pretty cool on its own. But this weapon does something else that's pretty awesome. The flower opens up and has a gun inside of it. So maybe this planet also has flowers with guns inside of them, and that's how they naturally grow. Or he's just made a cool looking weapon that has a sort of flower plant-like aesthetic to it. Regardless, both are super cool ideas. I love it. But what I also love about this is the idea of having weapons that kind of have like a hidden purpose or a hidden thing inside of it. Just the idea that they kind of have multiple uses. I think that's just clever, just creative. Again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but the fact that this mock's weapon does makes it like 12 times cooler. I've done the maths. I know it's exactly 12 times. I haven't done the maths. I made it up. But it looks super cool regardless. So awesome idea. Not that difficult to replicate either. If you have some of those flower pieces, if you have some of those stud shooters, that's not hard to do. And you could easily just take the kind of basic concept of just a weapon that opens up and becomes a gun. We've actually got another mock that's a bit, another weapon on another mock that's similar to that. So we'll explore a few different ways that you can have kind of almost transforming weapons in your mocks. Because I think, as we see here, it's pretty rad, and it's pretty cool. So let's take a look at the mock itself now. This mock was called the Ogram King. Of course, it uses Ogram's mask from the Hero Factory set Ogram, which was a really unique mask and a really cool set. The mask itself was a little bit more, ironically, mask-like. You know, it kind of looks like I don't know, like a samurai mask of some kind. It didn't really have kind of sides or a back to it so much. It was just a almost more flat front, like kind of samurai mask of sorts. It's unique. It's just a cool mask. And I think it very much fits the aesthetic of this mock. But something else that I like about the head on this mock is that it uses one of the Uniter Beast heads just to kind of buff out the mask a bit, to give it stuff on the sides and top, to add a bit more dimension to it. And you know, that was kind of the gimmick on all of the Toei Uniters in the second wave of Bionicle, was the fact that they had the cool Uniters that fit onto them, and, you know, their helmets got a bit larger. It kind of looked like they had a helmet on them because the Uniter head kind of rested above the mask. And then they got cool additional armor, weapons, wings, all sorts of stuff. But it kind of got me thinking, it's like, well, you know, to some degree those masks were designed so that the Uniter Beast heads would fit over the top of them. There's no reason you can't put those Uniter Beast heads on top of other Bionicle masks, like we see here. So maybe you want to take that exact Uniter Beast concept and apply it to other masks, other mocks. There's no reason you couldn't, because there'd be a bunch of masks that still works with. So it's worth trying, it's worth experimenting with, and seeing what's up. So I love that. It's great to see here. I still like in some of these images he has the meltdown tentacle on his hand, kind of just as, I don't know, this sort of weird elemental wisp, or maybe he has like plant-like powers and he's kind of summoning a vine into his hand or something. it's just unique. It's just cool. It's a fun addition, and again, kind of doubles as another weapon on this mark. And it's only really, one piece as that weapon too, so it's effective. It works. Another thing that's effective and works is the fact that the arms on this mock have the brain slugs from the Brain Invaders? Brain Attack from the Brain Attack wave of Hero Factory. I don't know, they look cool. They're kind of just, I don't know, it almost looks a bit like muscle or sort of like a vine kind of growing out of the arm. Just the way that they transition from the upper arm onto the lower arm there is very organic. It fits, it works. And the kind of natural shape of the brain slug, not so much the tail, the actual top kind of head body of it, also kind of doubles as just kind of buffing out the arm a bit more. It's one of few times I've seen a brain slug be used so well as just a kind of body part on a mock. There's times I see them, they kind of look a bit kind of ham-fisted into the mock. It doesn't quite fit. It kind of just, it looks like there's just a brain slug there, that kind of just doesn't seem to work with the overall aesthetic. But here it does. Here it works surprisingly well and provides a very unique, almost sort of jungle flair to this mock in some fashion, at least in my eyes, at least with my tastes. So I think it's really cool. It's a great way of using that more obscure, kind of harder to use piece, I think. So there you go, that's super cool. This mock here is by Jumbo the Knight. And this mock here is I'm just going to call it Weapons, because it doesn't necessarily have a name, because it's obviously inspired by Marvel stuff. So that's one of the ideas that you could do for some of your weapons in future mocks, is to get a bit of Marvel inspiration. Let's just power through here and show all the different examples. So of course he's made Stormbreaker, he's made Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, Thor's axe, and he's got Captain America's shield as well, and these are just weapons he's given to his self-mock here. I think kind of in the email he was saying this was more just him being like, cool, I like Marvel, I wanted to make these weapons specifically. They're not for any mock, I just wanted to make them. And he recommended it for a weapons episode, and bam, bing, boom, here it is. I think that's just a great idea. If you're a Marvel fan, or if you're a fan of other pop culture genres, maybe those characters or concepts have very specific weapons. Do you want to just straight up give that weapon to your mock? I mean, why not give an Infinity Gauntlet to your self-mock? Who cares if it doesn't fit with lore or canon? It'll probably look cool, That could be a fun idea. Or the general idea of like, hey, I want to give a hammer-like weapon to my mock. I want to give an axe-like weapon to my mock. Or I want my mock to have a shield that doubles as like an offensive weapon that you can throw and catch and all that sort of stuff. But it's also a shield, So that's another idea. Look to pop culture, look to Marvel, look to all sorts of stuff and see what sort of stuff they have for weapons and how you could implement those ideas into your own stuff. Whether you straight up copy it or you take the basic concept of a throwable shield that's also kind of a frisbee, why not use that as a sort of inspiration point or a launching point for designing weapons for your mocks? Because I think it works. So the axe design here is fantastic, as is the hammer design. Both of them use some system stuff for the sort of hammerhead or the blade of the axe/hammer. Both work well. It's a great way of getting that to look a little bit more detailed and realistic and fit the general kind of shapes that resemble how they look in the MCU. So that's really cool. And bling blong, there goes Discord. And yeah, I just think they're well designed. They fit the source material well, and it's just a fun idea and a fun concept if you want to just add a funky, interesting spice to your mock. If you're cooking a good Bionicle stew, you want to add a bit of nice herbs and spices in there, or herbs, as you American people say. Add some herbs and spices in there. It'll taste just fine as you cook up your mock. There you go. 8. So let's move on to the next mock here. It's by HS Diora, and this mock is called Seltras Uncaged Revenant, an ancient warrior whose immortal body was transformed into an eternal prison. After being freed from their old body by an ally, this once peace-loving knight is ready to burn the system that betrayed them to the ground. Thrown in a bit of backstory there too. It's a cool looking mock, this one, and it has some interesting weapons. So you might be kind of like, it's just got a kind of normal blade, which I will talk about soon, but it has another weapon on this mock here that is more unique and more cool. And that's the kind of interesting, funky, like, scarf that this mock has here. In some images, it's kind of posed to look a bit more like tentacles. Kind of almost could be a little Doc Ock-like there, that he has these shadow wisps that kind of come out of his body that can kind of be almost additional limbs, or they could kind of be some sort of whip attack, or they can somehow work with the world around him. But additionally, these tentacles in some images are also used as, what seems to be a sort of weapon that kind of comes out of his hand, like some sort of elemental attack. Or, like I said at the start, it's a nice scarf, so if he's feeling a little bit cold, he can be cool in the breeze, or warm in the breeze, rather. Scarves warm you, not cool you. But you look cool with a scarf, and I think that's another thing too. He looks edgy, he looks cool, he's got a nice scarf, looks like something fresh out of an anime or something. He looks badass. And being a slight edgelord, I think that's in the DNA of Bionicle, man. I mean, have you seen Vokama in some of the Bionicle stories? I love it. That me saying it's an edgelord is not a jab, by the way. I think it's fantastic. So a great addition there with a weapon that has, again, multiple usages. One for just looking cool, and two for different attacks and all sorts of different things. I think that's a great idea. And again, just using these black whip pieces here, these sort of black tentacle pieces that came in a variety of different colors and different sets. I think these came here on a Bionicle system playset from the Mari Wave. And yeah, fun addition. Not using too many pieces. Looks great. And of course, he has a separate sword here, which is just your sort of pre-standard sword. But it's using a jet engine piece as sort of the hilt of the sword, which I think is actually really fitting if you don't want to have fingers on the typical mutter hand of a mock. Actually, you probably could still put some of the fingers on, but not all of them. It'd be a bit difficult, but it's a nice way of them just sort of slotting into the hand there. It helps create a more unique hilt design. So the idea of getting a little jet piece like that is wise. I think it fits well here. So, some cool weapons, indeed. Some cool weapons, indeed. I do also enjoy the cloth on this mock. You know me, I love my cloths. I think this makes this mock really pop and look cool. The painted mask also works well. And I always just love seeing a bit of CCBS, those sort of gauntlets on this mock, and the shin armor here. Does look fantastic. Really kind of completes this mock, and it works well. So some cool weapons and a cool little mock here. Let's move on to the next mock. This one here is called Kayoki Fire Imp. And this mock is by Gavin Enos. So the weapons on this mock, they're a little bit more simplistic. Like I said at the start, I wanted to show some with some more intricate different usages, but I also wanted to show some more simple ones because I think it's a good thing to remember. You don't have to be super complex with your weapons or thinking outside the box or whatever. Sometimes it can just work perfectly well if you just have a few axles, a hand connector, and some flames on the end. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to make this sound like it's less complicated or anything, because I think it fits the mock well. This mock's name had the Fire Imp in it. You know, you look at the rest of the mock, there's no fire on it. But it's red, and so that could still conjure up ideas of fire, but, maybe you just want to build a red mock and it has nothing to do with fire. It's another option. But with that in mind, these weapons here have fire on them. So it helps to conjure up ideas of like, oh yeah, this mock probably has a control over fire. So hey, can your weapon be a way of sort of communicating something about the character? You take a look at like frickin' anything, any sort of storytelling. Weapons do say a lot about specific characters. It's like, here's your Star Wars reference for this episode. It's like in Season 7 of Clone Wars, when Ahsoka gets her blue lightsabers. There's symbolism behind it, because it's Anakin who tweaked with them and changed up the color and did what he did. It's him not being able to let go of Ahsoka. It's him holding on to attachments, which ultimately leads to his downfall and eventual turn into Darth Vader. It's him giving it to her and saying like, hey, yes, you can be yourself, but I kind of still want to be a part of you. The blue of my lightsaber is also now kind of in yours. It's him still kind of holding on, not quite being able to let go. There's still that slight pull in him, which also kind of relates to Ahsoka as well, because she is a little bit conflicted of like, I'm trying to go my own way here, but I do still miss you. I do still want to help you and be your friend and stuff. And it feeds into the tragedy of the story. But this isn't the Star Wars podcast, which it should be. This is an episode about Bionicle. But that's what I'm saying. There's so much meaning you can pack into weapons. And take a look around in all sorts of pop culture. You'll find meaning in weapons. So can you do that with your own mocks too? Can you pack meaning or character elements or just important facts about your character into a weapon in some fashion? It may not be as simple as that sounds. Or you could just do something like this and make it be like, yeah, cool, this is the element that he has control of. I'm putting that in the weapon. But if you can somehow find a way of communicating that sort of stuff in a weapon, good job. That may not be an easy task to do. Or it might be. Depends what you're trying to communicate. But I think here, a bit more of a simple weapon design. Not as, out of the box, but still it's doing a lot and it's working well. Speaking of things that are working well, I like how this mock is standing up. You might have noticed by now, it's standing up on its tail. It's kind of like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. I think he said it here in the email, he said he bounces around on his tail and using his spinning flaming poles as weapons. So, I think that's pretty cool. Just not really something I've seen before, the idea of a mock supporting itself with its tail. I love that, Again, yeah, sure, it's something that Tigger does as well. I'm not saying this mock is Tigger, but it's a unique concept, It's a great kind of a leg design. but not a leg design. You know, he's still got legs. He still walks around on his legs as well, but that could be a cool way that he fights. You know, maybe he bounces off of his tail, uses it as a springboard to attack and stuff. It's kind of a cool idea. And just a cool concept, you know? It's always fun to play around with different concepts. How do they stand? How do they support themselves? How do they walk? All that sort of stuff. How can you work with that with a mock? So I think this mock's really playing around with some unique stuff here. It's cool. Also a bold color scheme as well. Your red and your azure like that really, really pops. Two next to each other work perfectly well. Very nice indeed. So unique weapons, unique colors, unique stuff, unique tail, unique legs. A lot of unique stuff on this mock. I like it a lot. Next mock. This is by my good man Shuby4000. I say my good man because that's just a fun name to say. Shuby4000. And this mock is called Kintama. So this mock has two weapons. One of them is an axe, which is a cool looking axe, and the other one here is a cool looking gun. I'll touch upon the gun first, we'll get back to the axe. This gun uses a Zamasphere launcher, and I don't know about you, I've kind of forgotten about Zamasphere launchers at this point. People don't use them. People don't use them at all. But I was talking about this in, I think it was a Patron podcast. I was talking about it in something. Someone will tell me what it was at some point. I was just thinking back to like Bionicle, and I was like, hey, I miss Bionicle, man. Bionicle's cool. But you know what I liked so much about Bionicles? A thing that I didn't realize I missed it at the time. I was like, I don't really like these. Is how, you know, almost every new wave of Bionicle, they came up with a new launcher element. Whether it was the Squid launchers, the Zamasphere launchers like this, the Thornax launchers, the Midak blasters, all the different launchers that they had, it was fun to play with them whenever you got the new one. You know, maybe you didn't like that specific blaster because it couldn't really fire or it didn't work as well or whatever. But it was still really nice when you cracked open your first set of that wave and you went, how does this blaster work? I want to play with it. It was just a fun element of Bionicle that I enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed it too. But I go like, hey, if you want to have a bit of playability with your mock, those pieces were made to be played with. So break out your Zamaspheres, break out your Midak blaster, break out your Thornax launchers, all sorts of different stuff. Don't break out your Squid launchers because they were awful, in my opinion. Nah, they were cool. I didn't mind them. I like the idea that they shot squids. I thought that was unique and cool, but they were hard to fire, at least in my books and a few other people's books. But regardless, not a tangent about squid launchers. I think that's fun. If you want to have something that fires on a weapon, look into that sort of stuff. And hey, if you want a bit more of a classic Bionicle vibe too with your Bionicle mock, do it, you know. The most recent mock that I posted was a pirate ship, and I specifically designed it to have a more sort of classic pirate aesthetic to it. I could have gone ham. I could have gone ham with all sorts of different techniques and more custom approaches and stuff, but I used, you know, your typical kind of prefab base design for a pirate ship, and I wanted it to look more set-like because I thought that was a fun and cool aesthetic and it had some nostalgia behind it, you know? So why not do that with your Bionicles too? Pack in a bit of nostalgia, use a Zamasphere launcher, use any of the launcher pieces, and just have fun. And you can actually fire it too, which is always good. So it works super well here too as well, and fits in with the color scheme of this mock. But let's talk about its axe, like I was going to say. The axe uses some axe pieces from some of the Chima Ultra Build CCBS sets. Now, I've said it before, if you Google it enough, you'll be able to read up more about it, but some of these Chima sets were released around the world, and some weren't. I can't remember the specific places that they were distributed, but it wasn't everywhere. Some of them are a bit rarer than others. And so these axe pieces on this axe are from some of those rarer Chima sets that weren't distributed everywhere. They make a fantastic axe design, but to some degree, it's kind of just a typical kind of prefab weapon. You know, it's not super custom. It's not using a whole bunch of different pieces to make something unique and different. It's just a very typical axe head, you know? It's essentially kind of what it probably looked like in the set to some degree. I don't remember exactly how it looked in my head, but that's because I'm just having a brain fart right now, and that's okay. Still, something that I do like about this is it's using a more obscure piece, a piece that not everyone was able to just commonly get. I think there's a surprisingly nice feel to that. Yes, it may not be a super complex technique or super out there, but because it's a bit of a rarer piece, it's just nice to look at. So there's something nice about that. Maybe right now you're struggling a little bit, and you're like, I can't build this weapon. I just don't know how to do it. Like, I want to go more custom. I want to do something different. I want to think outside the box, but it's not working. Well, have you got some obscure pieces? Maybe you could just let that be the weapon, and people will still think it's pretty cool because, you know, it's some more obscure rare pieces that they might not even have themselves. So something to think about if you're looking to be a bit outside the box, or maybe you're looking to try something new that will people will think is super cool or super different. You know, that could be one approach to that. Depends on what sort of what you want to accomplish with the weapon you're designing, of course. You know, your goals within the mock itself, or your goals within the larger community. You know, how do you want to be viewed in the community? How do you want people to look at your mocks? It's something to think about. You know, it's not a way I typically build. I like to just build however makes me happy. But hey, if you're somebody who wants to get more influence in the social media world, you want to get those likes, you want to get those followers, all that sort of stuff, maybe that's an approach to build very different new designs in your mocks. That could be one way of doing a very different or unique weapon design. It's just to play with more obscure pieces, you know? Something to think about, So cool mock, a cool color scheme, and some cool weapons on this one. Next mock, this is called Toa Pico. Pico is a cool name, I like that. And this is by Delta. So this is another weapon that kind of transforms. It's got multiple forms here. This first one here, I kind of see as just some sort of interesting sort of, I don't know, forward-shaped blade of some kind. It's got little kind of laser cannons on the side as well. It looks cool. But it does open up, kind of almost becomes a sort of bow and arrow of sorts. Looks cool. Looks very cool. So it sort of could shoot maybe like energy beams or shoots out actual arrows or something like that. And then it's got a third form too, where it sort of moves forward and kind of maybe becomes more of a I don't know, more of like a, I don't know, maybe there's a secret cannon inside of the red area of this mock here, and it sort of opens up in that fashion, and there's an additional weapon behind that. So there's kind of multiple different ways that it can fire different things or fire different types of ammunition or something, but it's just cool the way it sort of swivels like that and could have multiple different usages. And, whatever that use is up to your imagination, of course. But I like the idea of that. It sort of has ways of swiveling, ways of moving, of transforming of sorts, and having different uses as a result. It's cool. It's really cool. As is this mock as well, a very unique color scheme, the brown and red. Not something you see every day. A bit of silver thrown in there too, of course. It works. It works well. The wings also work. Again, more simplistic wings. Just very typical kind of wing pieces, not anything like Jafer or other people have done, where they've got like 72,000 wing elements and made these super complex, like eagle-like wings or something. No, it's a little bit more laid down and simple, but it works. Works really well. So it's a fantastic mock and a fantastic weapon there. Always good to see a nice Toa there with a unique weapon. It works well. On to the last knockmao, and it is a beautiful one. It's by Anthony Wilson, and it's called Toa Hellrix. So this is from the Hellrix TTV canonization contest. This was my favorite entry in the contest, personally. But hey, other people had other favorites, and that's okay as well. And this mock here has some fantastic weapons. We'll focus on the shield first. So this shield uses some Vaki kind of sword pieces here, and they're kind of in opposite directions here, and it works well as a kind of unique shield design of sorts. It looks unique. It works. It has a nice sort of distinct, different shape to it. And I like the idea, too, of using swords to make a shield. It's different, but it works. Works really well. So is that a way that you can use some of those prefab pieces, but to make it into something different and unique? I think it works well here. So I also like how Anthony has done the kind of mace on this mock as well. The kind of main sort of structural piece of this mace is this interesting kind of gearbox that came in a variety of different Technic sets. I don't know the name of this piece, but it's a cool piece. It sort of houses the general construction of the mace. And naturally, this piece has some smoother angles to it, but it does have the gears on the top and bottom, which helps to add a bit of like this sort of ornateness to this weapon. Like it's kind of got some patterns carved into it and such, which is fitting. So maybe adding in a few gears and things here on some weapons could add a nice flair to it. I love too that there's some gears on the inside as well, and then there's a little sort of dots piece there, a 1x1 smooth tiled stud there that works well as just, I don't know, some sort of glowing element inside the mace. It fits, it works. I also love too the octagonal plate piece here. Honestly, it's such a good piece. It's a 2x2 plate, system plate, and around the edges are lightsaber rod, system bar pieces. And there's 8 on each side of this piece here. And it's just a great way of having a lot of different connection points. It's the way that all of these different sort of spiked elements are attached on this mace. It's very fitting, works well. And it's just a very helpful piece if you're looking to build any sort of weapon or just anything, man. It's a good piece to invest in. It's a good one. Head design on this mock's fantastic, but I think the best thing that really makes this mock pop is the stand. The way that there's almost sort of like a constellation or planets or something behind Hellrix here. Not only does it sort of silhouette the head of the mock, really kind of make it stand out more, which I think is easily the best part of this mock, but it also, just the gold and the black really kind of contrast up against the mock. It helps you to kind of draw your focus into good areas, but it also helps to just sort of show it off more. So a great way of building a stand just to kind of support the mock more and add a bit of context to it, but also a good way of just making it pop. It's cool. It's really cool. So that's it for a bunch of different weapon designs and also a whole bunch of different fantastic mocks in this episode today of the Bionicle Inspiration series. So if you're looking for some inspiration, needing a bit of inspiration rather, on a weapon, hopefully this helped. And if it didn't, we've actually got a whole bunch of other weapon episodes as well. So head on over to the Bionicle Inspiration series playlist. You can browse there, and you can find a few other weapon episodes if you're interested and needing a little bit more. It's all there for you. If you want to submit some of your own mocks to the show, you can do so through the email you're currently seeing on your screen. Just submit any pictures. Doesn't matter. If you want to submit one, if you want to submit like 10, whatever. Submit as much or as few as you want. As much or as little of the description as you want as well. That is pretty much all you need to. Submit it to the email, send your email, I will get it, and I'll add it to the list, and one day it'll appear on the show. But of course, I get a lot of emails, get a lot of submissions, so your patience is key. I do my best to work through as many as I can every episode, but there's a lot, so I got a lot to work through. Your patience, as I said, is key. Additionally, there's links to the description below to some of my social media, some of the other things that I've got going on over there. You can check out all that sort of stuff, whether that's my Lego stuff, whether you want to see me take some cool photography pictures and post them on Instagram and Twitter and Flickr and Facebook, all sorts of places like that, or maybe you want to see some of the D&D stuff that I've been doing of late. Yes, I've actually launched a new podcast. There should be 2 or 3 episodes up at the moment. It's with my real-life friend, Nick. We talk D&D for a few hours in those podcasts. We'll have those out semi-regularly. There's not necessarily a schedule at the moment. Really, it's just a fun little side project we're doing. But we'd like to get them out as weekly as we can. So if you want to see me talk about non-Lego things, you can check in over there. But of course, I talk a bit about Star Wars and Lego every so often. So there'll be little bits there that if D&D's not your thing, you'll enjoy that. But still, I think we're pretty entry-level about D&D, so it won't be something you won't be able to wrap your head around if you're new to it. I think it'll still be engaging and fun. So something to think about if you are looking for some of the other things that I've got out there. You can find that podcast on the FlameTongue Fables YouTube channel. There will be links in the description below, which I actually haven't added that YouTube link yet to the description below, so I'm going to do that now. Haha! But it's there. You can check it out on FlameTongue Fables. There's also links to that on our Instagram and Facebook, so you can check that out. Anyway, that's it for this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. Thank you so much for watching. I'm speeding through this sentence, and I'm speeding on out of here. Bye, guys. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.